Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Living Astrology with Janet Hickox. Grab your cup of coffee or your tea, sit back, and let's chat about what is happening up in the sky above us today. And it is a bright spot out there, I believe, today through all of the trials and the tribulations of transits that we've been having between the Plutos, the Jupiters, the Saturns that were in the sign of Capricorn, deconstructing and reconstructing our world. We've been through this, right? We've been hanging in there. And now today we have a bright spot on that horizon. Now, all bright spots, of course, come from a space perhaps where there's the alter ego of it, where it's a not so bright spot. So we're going to want to talk about that. But what I am essentially saying today with the transit of Jupiter turning into retrograde and the connections that the planet is making today is that bright spot might just be a piece of great luck. It could be some kind of prosperity. It could be some kind of movement in a way that you haven't had in a while. Excuse me, I'm feeling like I'm going to choke here this morning. Hold on. Don't choke on it, Janet. And also the opportunity for us to do some really deep inner work. So on top of that, today we have a moon that is already in the void as she is preparing to move out of the sign of Aquarius and into the sign of Pisces, but that won't happen until later this evening. And we also come to the new beginning of a spiral of evolution or a spiral of consciousness with our Pleiadian-Earth calendar. So we have a lot to talk about today. And hopefully I can get to a couple of charts. I know I want to at least get to Augustina's chart because she asked me to do that a couple of days ago. So I hope she joins us this morning. Allison, good morning. And Mimi, good morning. Jennifer and Marissa and Kamal, good morning to all of you. I hope everybody is having a good day. Now, I see myself choppy in the video, so I'm hoping you guys aren't seeing me sort of in a chopped up mode. I'm gonna have to check and see what's going on with that. I noticed it the other day too. It doesn't show up in the recording though, so I'm hoping maybe it doesn't show up for you guys. But if it does, my apologies. There isn't probably much I can do about it. The internet seems to be working just fine, so we'll just carry on. So the number one thing of the day is Jupiter turning into retrograde motion. And that will happen today. Let's see, do I have a time? I do have a time. Jupiter turns retrograde at 6:44 a.m. So he has already turned into that retrograde motion. That would have been at 9:44 a.m. for those of you on the East Coast. And let's see, I don't have the European. Yes, I do. Universal time. That would have been about noon your time, perhaps 1 o'clock, somewhere around there. Or maybe just even a little bit earlier than that. And so now we are all sitting with Jupiter in retrograde. So what can we expect from that? Well, first of all, Jupiter spends a good time of the year in retrograde motion. Typically, it is about a 4 to 5 month process of this retrograde, beginning today, and it will end on September 12th. So May to June, July, August, September, 4 months. And it will retrograde from 27 degrees Capricorn backward to 17 degrees of Capricorn. And so that's a good 10-degree span in your personal astrology chart that you will see where there's some going backwards with Jupiter and I always think it's a her. It should be a her, but it's a him. It's masculine energy. And this will be where maybe you can pick up some places where you've been working really hard and things haven't been happening for you. And suddenly maybe there's a breakthrough with that. There are a couple of big transits that Jupiter will make during this period of time. The first one is if we take and make a chart up of the movement of Jupiter into retrograde today, you see that it is in a very powerful trine to the sun, hence the good luck, right? And then on top of that, it is sitting right between the two planets, Pluto on one side and Saturn on the other. So we have Jupiter's luck sort of bounded between these two outer giants that have not, one about power and transformation and the other about reconstruction or creating sustainability or staying within limits and boundaries. And so we see sort of that Jupiter is contained, but the out is through the sun, and the sun, of course, bringing in some really good energies during this time. So another one of the transits that'll occur during this period of time is on June 30th. Jupiter will conjunct Pluto for the second time this year. The first time was back in April, and then there will be a third time later up in September, October time. So that is the first time in nigh on 800 years or more that we have had Jupiter doing that kind of dance with a very powerful outer planet. It means a lot of social change. We've already seen this, right? We're already seeing the effects of changes in our environment, in the way that we socialize and in the way that we congregate. And the effects, of course, are also playing out in our governments, in our institutions, etc. So we're already seeing some of the effects of that very powerful Jupiter-Pluto conjunction that occurred in April. And so now we have another one coming up in June, and that one will come on the heels of a powerful solar eclipse that happens on the summer solstice. So we have some really interesting times coming up. I did warn you that the second half of 2020 was going to be a very busy one. And if we thought the first 6 months were busy, these next ones are going to be even busier. So let's break down, though, what we might be able to expect with Jupiter in retrograde. One, this gives us a very keen access to spiritual introspection and reflection. Jupiter is a planet that, besides bringing us prosperity and abundance and expansion and growth, that expansion and growth when he is in retrograde is on the internal realm. So we may, through the process of meditation or going within, doing our own soul work, we may find ourselves in a great time of expansion, moving out old beliefs or old ideas or old things, the old emotional hurts, the patterns, you name it, those things that are on the inside of us that we've been holding as truth that isn't, are now enabled to be moved on out. And what does that leave? That leaves you more space for luck, for generosity, for good fortune, for prosperity, for abundance. So where Jupiter is in your natal chart and by transit is going to help you see where that extra time and space given to us by this Jupiter retrograde is going to be able to help you grow in some way. So I think what I'll do right now is before we continue, I'm going to go on to, first of all, let me see who else is here with us. And I lost you. There we are. J-Lo, good morning. Amy, good morning. And J-Lo says, please use mine. I would enjoy it. J-Lo, I'm sorry, for the moment, my brain is lost. Would you please tell me what your full name is so that I can find it in my chart? And Choppy, yes, Mimi says, the sound is good. I don't know what's up with that. And I can't do anything about it right now, but I think it might be I need to clean up the browser. Anyway, besides that, let's see. I don't see Augustina here, so maybe J-Lo, quickly put in what your last name is. Is it Lopez? It is. I'm gonna check real quick, and if that's the case, then I can get your chart up really easily too. And then I can do Augustina's. It's Jacqueline, isn't it? Yes, I do have you. Good. And then I'll come up and share the chart with you. Okay, now let me share my screen from Zoom, and we'll take a look at a live person's chart and where Jupiter is going retrograde. Okay, so what you all should be seeing right now is Jacqueline's chart, birth date April 23rd, 1975. And I'm going to see if I can just make this a little bit bigger, zoom it in so we can see. Now, what you're seeing in this kind of chart for everybody, because this may look a little different, is the inner wheel here showing us where all of the planets were when she was born. And then on the outer wheel in the green are where all the planets are as of today. And it's still happening in most people's charts. What I'm seeing is the planets are all congregating in one half of the chart or the other, or on one hemisphere of the chart or the other. And that is just because the planets all seem to be lined up between Gemini and Sagittarius. And wherever that is in your chart is where you're going to see this concentration of these planets. You see this grouping here between Capricorn and Aquarius. You see this group here in Pisces. You see this group over here in Aries. And then we have our Taurus group. And we now also have a Gemini group. So our concentration is on those first, well, the last couple of signs and the first couple of signs in the zodiac. Now, when we're looking at Jupiter, of course, Jupiter is in the sign of Capricorn. So you can see it right here. This is the sign of Capricorn. It looks like sort of the number 76. And so if you're looking at your own chart and you can find here, this is the sign of Capricorn. And what we see is this is the planet Jupiter. Jupiter looks like sort of a parentheses with a cross sitting next to it. And here it is sitting at 27 degrees of Capricorn. The lines aren't always quite exact. I'm going to bring this in just another little bit here so we can see here is the tick mark. And if we cross that down, it's down at 27 degrees. So we see Jupiter in retrograde in Jackie's 8th house of sex, death, and rebirth. So I would say, Jackie, look at this. You've also got Saturn, Pallas Athena, Chariklo, Jupiter, and Pluto. They're all sort of congregated in that 8th house. So there's a lot of transformation going on in your chart here. And perhaps that is a lot of death and rebirth. Perhaps there has been literal death where you've become maybe the executor of an estate, or you've had to in some way take over the finances or the management of somebody else's finances. That happens with the 8th house often. But the 8th house is also a place of divorce. Now, when I say divorce, it's not always just marriage. This could be you divorcing yourself from some other way of being, from some other type of relationship, or in some way allowing what isn't working just to be passing on out of view or out of existence. Now, depending on how you feel about that, depends on how easy this will be for you. And some people hold on really tightly to things, right? And they don't want to let go. And if that is the case, it's going to trigger more fear for you. And that's what this Jupiter transit will be about you going inward to release yourself from fear. The other thing here in the 8th house, it has a connection to what I always like to say is OPM, O, other people's, P, money, other people's money. So this is money that comes to you from the government, from taxes, from credits, inheritances, a spouse's income. This can also be credit and debt that you're carrying that perhaps you're in a process of trying to release and let go of. So honestly, right now, with the world the way it is and jobs the way they are, you may be finding yourself receiving money from maybe and living off of the stimulus package or unemployment, or in some way your spouse's income perhaps being affected by what's going on in the outer world. Now, next week, here's another bit of good news. From tomorrow all the way through, let's see what day here, through the 20th, so next Wednesday, we are going to have the Earth sitting at the gate 14, which is the gate of prosperity. And so I see this connection here of prosperity paths opening up for you, Jacqueline, whether that is through paying off some bills or reducing the amount of money that you borrow, or some income coming in ways that you didn't expect. I would be on the lookout for some really good things coming here. But on the other hand, you're still moving through a very deep time of deconstruction and reconstruction. And that may be changing what you value, changing how you value yourself, what kind of work you want to do, whether you want to work at all. And so the 8th house here bringing up a lot of change and a lot of that transformative energy. So now, where Jupiter is, right, is where I said that you have sort of been given extra time and space to grow. But because this is all happening now on the internal plane, you have to be ready to adopt growth into your life and adopt the changes that will be necessary in order to grow in a way that's responsible. And any areas that are out of control in your life right now is where you're going to see this death rebirth process going on. And it's going to give you some time to maybe get those things under control and to be able to find new solutions to old problems and things like that. And Jupiter sitting between, if you look at this, Jupiter sitting between Pluto and Saturn, also Pallas and Chariklo, but the two biggies, Pluto and Saturn. And in the process, this is a trine to the sun over here in Taurus, a 120-degree angle, which brings good luck. So is this good luck for you from cleaning out some of the more internal voices in your head? Because the sun is in the 12th house for you right now. Is this coming from places where you release yourself from boundaries, from the old, and from the self-sabotaging behaviors of the past? So there's a lot for you to consider here that you might be able to change in your life before you see the effects of the good luck. All right, so I'm gonna stop sharing for a moment. I want to run over there and see how she's thinking about this. Augustina, wishing you quick healing. Oh no, she's sick. But I do have your chart, Augustina, so if you can just listen even. Okay, so, I will be sure to be looking out. Yes. Good morning. Linda says, hello, all you beautiful people. So Jupiter is in Libra in my first house. Oh, hey, let's go back for a second, Augustina. I mean, Jacqueline, because I did not look at where Jupiter is in your natal chart, because that's also the place where this might be playing out. Hold on, I'm going to share my screen again so we can all see that. So Jupiter in your natal chart is in the 11th house in Aries, and you have Chiron sitting on top of that right now. And that might be bringing up some need to connect to people that actually can help you, that friends and beneficial people, networks of like-minded people. So I think your natal Jupiter is about connecting to some of those kinds of people that have an influence on you, of taking you into new areas and expanding your horizons and helping you to start down a new path. So the possibility for you here is that you can surround yourself by others that are where you want to be, or who are talking about the subjects that you want to hear about, that are places where they can help you find the path forward to grow through studying or something new and exciting. Because Jupiter in Aries is really headstrong and is really kind of good energy to go out and do something new. But when I find it in an 11th house, sometimes there is difficulty that you have when you're experiencing friendships or networking or socially, as maybe you have had just the wrong people around you. So maybe finding the right people. Yeah, I also see your natal Chiron is in this part of the chart, so that even brings that up more. Eris is in this part of your chart. So you got to find your people, and you've got to sort of be able to expand and try to merge your energies with others and not just your own, trying to get your own way, etc. The 11th house is also the house of vision and having a dream. So maybe it's time to adopt a dream, right? What is that bigger goal that you have in your life, and starting to work on that by releasing the things within you over here that have been holding you back, beliefs, patterns, self-sabotage, you name it. All right, hopefully that helps. Okay, now I'm going to stop share. Actually, I'm going to change the screen. Let's see if I can go over here. That's the chart of the moment. That's Jacqueline's. So now I need to go back to Augustina. Let's see here, I'm going to stop sharing and do it because it doesn't want to work right. Sorry, guys. Let me bring up Augustina's chart and we'll do the same thing with her. Okay, so we'll just do it the other way. Sometimes you just have to laugh at all the fun things that are going on with these retrogrades. Now, I know, oh, it's GI. That's why. There we are. I was trying to spell your name wrong, Augustina. So let's see. Now I'm going to share my screen again because I have your chart up. And let's take a look. So Augustina has a birthday coming up next month, 5 days before my own. I knew you were a Gemini. Okay, so Augustina, for you, here's Jupiter. So again, we're looking for the sign of Capricorn. That number sort of looks like a 76. And that is the area where we're going to find your transiting Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn, as well as Pallas and Chariklo. Now for you, this is, I got to look and see where the actual changing is here. At 28 degrees Capricorn is where your 11th house is activated. So Jupiter has gone to the very last degree of your 10th house, which is the house of career and profession, how you're seen in the outer world. And that very last degree of that house, and now it's in retrograde, moving backwards to 17 degrees, which will put it right here, right between your natal Neptune and your natal Uranus. I would say there's some big things happening on the work front or on the worldly you front, which means maybe there's a change going on in your profession or how it is that you want to be seen in the world. This is a process of you claiming your authority. Even your North Node or destiny is in this part of your chart. And if you were born in 1992, you are just what, 27? So you are coming into, you see here's Saturn, and here's your natal Saturn at 18 Aquarius. So you're preparing for your first Saturn return. That means that you are really in this process of growing up. And I'm not saying that you haven't been a grown up, and I'm not saying that you haven't chosen a career, or that you haven't been doing what you're meant to be doing, but this is sort of where that rubber meets the road. And at this age, you really have to set aside the childish ways, if you will. Oh, and as I say that, it feels very judging. That's not what I mean at all here. It's really that you may be just seeing that you've got to set aside some of the old in order to really shine in the world in the way that you were meant to. And that may bring up a lot of different things. It may be a process of you letting go of what you thought you were going to be or who you thought you were going to be in the world in order to embrace a new view of who that is in the world. So Jupiter at this moment giving you the time and the space to be able to grow inwardly in a way that is going to be supportive of you, and to be able to release yourself from what I suspect is likely conditioning from maybe your father or in general your parents, your culture, your society that you grew up in, where you may be in a little bit different resonance than them, and you have to change that resonance. You're going to have to be able to have the courage to grow in the direction that you want to grow in. And I see that you have your natal Saturn in the 11th house, which means that maybe you by default have too limited of a vision for yourself. So here's your opportunity to broaden that vision, right? To be a little bit bigger, seeing a bigger future, a brighter future for yourself, as Saturn is in future-oriented Aquarius and is transiting backwards to, the past-oriented Capricorn. So it's an interesting time for you, I think. And I would love to hear, I hope you're still out there. I would love to hear what's really going on in your personal life, because I know that this has got to be the area where a lot of change is happening. And your natal Jupiter is also in a work house in the sign of Virgo. So I feel like you're really, maybe you can't see the forest for the trees. Maybe you've gotten too into the details, or you've gotten too much into the big picture and you haven't actually taken the time to take the steps to move forward. So in either case, this is your time, right? To embrace the larger vision and to hold that vision the highest and best, but also to take the steps the stepwise progression, one step in front of the other or one foot in front of the other, as demanded by your Jupiter in Virgo. This might be a really good time to lay down a plan, do some mind mapping. I don't know if you know what mind mapping is, but I use it even when I write. I draw in the middle the main idea, perhaps, and your main idea might be my right work. And then off those, I make bubbles, lines to the different bubbles and the different ideas, just allowing my mind to free flow through the map. And this might be a very good time for you to do that. And I see a 26-degree Pisces rising and a T-square pointed at that. So that tells me that there's a lot of imagination and creative energy, but is it being expressed? So this makes me think of someone whose vision of themselves is as an artist or a creative, but feeling locked in a very concrete sequential world. And you may have to release yourself from the concrete sequential and yet use those very practical applicational skills that you have in the realm of imagination and fantasy and creativity. Hope that makes sense to you. That's a very interesting chart that you have there. And of course, your birthday coming up, you can always draw up a solar return and see what your year what the themes are coming up for you as the year goes on. Okay. What else? Augustina says, I've been working for a digital company and was out on hold because of the COVID virus. My dream is to be a holistic therapist. Put on hold. The values of the company don't align with me. I would love to help people be their better selves. And I think that you are distinctly capable of doing that in very concrete ways and very, with Jupiter in Virgo, it's about holisticness. I remember, what was it now, a few years back, the whole theme with Jupiter transiting through Virgo for the year was about bringing in all of the parts of ourselves that we'd broken off to become whole. And Virgo is a specific sign with Jupiter moving through it that can help us do exactly that, right? To become more whole, healed, and healthy. So all you have to do is let go of your old thoughts about that or the way that you've been entertaining the world in that way. And even if you have to do a job, a job at the moment that, pays your bills, while you're in the process of creating the space for you to become a therapeutic healer of whatever kind of therapist that might mean for you. Maybe it's a counselor, a guide of some sort. So you have that ability. So you just have to make the plan and work the plan to get there. All right. Okay, so back here to Zoom, I want to talk now about a little bit about the sun. Today, the sun is in a very critical space as we've come to that space with the moon where it is the crisis of consciousness. And that is when there's the square between the full moon and the new moon. So we're halfway now from the full moon to the new moon. And when we get to that space, we have some pretty powerful things that can come up in our psyche that might stop us from moving forward or moving ahead. And what we see, it's usually just chatter, 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 the mind telling you, you can't do that, or what are you going to do if, or how are you going to make that happen? And so, and it's funny because yesterday a friend texted me and was experiencing some doubts about the work she's doing as she encountered some kind of obstacles on her path. And her immediate thought was, am I fooling myself, right? That I can do this, or that this was the right thing for me? Am I, sort of in a crazy mode? And I sat there for a second and I thought, oh, this sounds like a crisis of consciousness. And indeed, the timing is that point where we may be finding ourselves in that kind of crisis of consciousness mode. And if that's the truth of where you are, if you're second guessing yourself, or if you're asking questions like, am I deluding myself or something like that, based on an intention that you set with that new moon or something that was revealed to you with the full moon, then this is the time for you to get your mind and heart aligned. That's what the crisis of consciousness does. Now, lucky for us, I choose to use the word lucky for us and not woe is us. The last aspect that the moon makes before going into this longer void, of course, a 11-hour void, is that crisis point, is that square to the sun. So for a good chunk of the day today, we may be asking ourselves about whether the ideas that we're enacting or the things that we're doing are truth. Am I taking the right steps? Am I overstepping? Am I understepping? And if all of that is coming up and it's in the mind, you have to ask yourself, is this true? Or is this just my mind, right? Because if you've done things according to your heart and put your all into doing something, the chances are the closer you get to it, the more those voices in your head can get loud. And you have to be able to adopt an attitude of, well, this is what I want. And unless the universe is really pushing me in a different direction, this is just so much garbage going on in my mind, right? In my mind. So allowing yourself that crisis point not to take you out of the game. Maybe it is about redirecting your energies or questioning the veracity of what it is that you're doing or what you're thinking about. But this is, I think, an opportunity for you to get some clarity and to release yourself from some of that chatter. Now, as soon as the moon comes out of the void and moves into 0 degrees of Pisces, it comes right into contact with Mars, which is now today at 0 degrees, almost 1 degree of Pisces. So the end of the day, it'll be late in the evening for those of you on the East Coast. So this will be something that works into even tomorrow. The moon will conjunct the planet Mars. And this is going to give us some creative direction, I think. So all of the doubts and suspicions and chatter going on in your head today could be very much straightened out later this evening. Your imagination could be stimulated. Your creative energy starts to get flowing again. And allows a space for you to take compassionate action. So even though we may be in this longer period of contemplating our consciousness around the intentions that we set or what it is that we want to manifest in our world, the net effect is to have us come out of that with more energized imagination or creativity. So again, these are times where we don't make big decisions about changing something or throwing something out, or even, changing things in a big way until we get out of the void, which won't be until later this evening. Now, all of that this is kind of one of those days where you see sort of these energies that are in contrast to one another. Because first off, I started out the show talking about Jupiter moving into retrograde, where the possibility of growth and expansion, moving things from the inward world, maybe translating into prosperity and growth in the outer world. But there are also the more negative things that come up when any planet turns retrograde, right? It often shows us like smack on the forehead where it is that we're playing the victim, where it is that we've become lazy, where it is that we've been feeling helpless, where the hardship is in our life. It can amplify that, at least initially. So I don't want to say, oh, hey, it's all, daisies and roses today. But because I think sometimes initially we bump up against to that spot that it's hard for us, or where we've been dealing with an issue or a trial or a tribulation. And that, at least initially, then, depending on who you are and what your mind is focused on, it can emphasize or amplify maybe the negative just as easily as it can amplify the positive. So if you allow these thoughts to intercede into your forward motion, then you are going to find yourself in trouble. You might find yourself going down into that dark place. If you do, and it's a natural possibility, I mean, it can happen. If that does, then you've got to look at what is it that I'm thinking about? Where are my thoughts focused? It always comes back to your mind, doesn't it? To where it is that I'm focusing my thoughts. And, I recently have had a powerful experience with that, and how in a moment I could change my power by thinking differently. And the effect has been huge in terms of creating a very lucky break for me, where if I had focused and kept focused on the negative or what I thought I was seeing, in my life, it could have been a different result. So realistically, yeah, there may be some more, negative downtrodden thoughts going on because it at first is going to be a little bit more amplified. But the key here is that you have the power to change that, to interrupt that pattern just by changing what it is that you're focusing on. And we have help there because today the sun is also in a powerful trine to the planet Pluto. So this is the possibility of some intense and powerful experiences with other people or with things happening in the world or ways things open up for you in your personal life. This is an excellent energy for us to be able to do that deep dive, to do that soul searching, to investigate, to study more about what it is that is going on with us personally, or if there's a subject that you're studying or something that you've been, wanting to investigate. This is great energy for doing that. So go ahead and do your personal soul search today, because you might be able to discover the real you, right? It's like the sun is this major spotlight and it's like a searchlight, We think of a flashlight in a dark room. Well, think about having a searchlight that you can take with you through the underworld or through the internal you. That's what we have today, right? If you had a spotlight and you could look at all of the things that are going on in your own personal underworld, in your own personal dark space, what do you think is going to happen, right? You're going to have this great opportunity to clean out that space, to look in those corners and see where those cobwebs are, or where you've piled some junk that needs to be cleared out. And I'm not talking about literal junk. I'm talking about junk from thoughts and emotions and grievances and unforgiveness and places where you haven't been grateful and yikes, right? So there could be this possibility today that we could really change our internal landscape. And then we have Jupiter in retrograde saying, hey, if you're going to do that deep dive, then I'm going to give you some gifts, right? Because you're doing your work. You're doing the work. Alternatively, today with the Sun trine Pluto, there may also be a person that makes a great impression upon you today, or that you have the opportunity to make a great impression on someone else today. So be very aware of what you're saying and how you're moving through your life, because you don't know who you might be affecting by your attitude, by your thought processes, by your actions, by your compassion. So be open to that today as well. So while there's a possibility that at least initially we see the dark side, moving through that and coming out into the light can really be beneficial. And then that can help with this new energy of the spiral of consciousness through the Pleiadian-Earth energy today of one being. Now, remember yesterday we went through the dark, right? Yesterday we went through the void, the space of no space, the power of ascension, right? We were integrating everything we'd learned in the previous 13 days. And then today we come out into the one with initiation and new beginnings, where all things are possible. When we stay in the present moment, what we discover here is that we can use the power of intention to create new thoughts, new ideas, new opportunities, etc., new relationships. Anything and everything is possible today, right? That if we adopt that thought or that belief, anything and everything is possible. This is our umbrella energy now for the next 13 days. So even though we go through the two eek and or wind, idea and understanding, and we go through all of the other remembrance and all the other energies during this next 13 days, overall, it is about anything and everything is possible, and staying in the present moment where all is well is exactly what we need to do, because the possibility is huge. And think about if you focused on only the dark and the dismal for the next 13 days, what would that effect have on your future? So this is a very good learning lesson for all of us. It's a very good lesson here in using the power of positive thinking and the power of intention to create a new way forward. Does that mean you're not going to have obstacles or challenges to your new way of thinking? No, right? That's almost always right. The first time you set an intention to have positive thinking, something happens in your life, a phone call or a person or something happens, and it tests your ability to stay on intention, to stay on message, right? So that's the way of the universe, right? So every time that you see that and you go, it's okay, my intention is this, and I'm sticking with that, making whatever adjustments you might need to make along the way, then you can really empower yourself over these next 13 days. The energy in the earth today is being energy, which is also the start of the 20-day earth signs. So we have the start of the universal energy and we have the start of the earth sign energy today. So today is one being, which in the Mayan calendar, being was Imish, which was the alligator or crocodile that gave birth to creation. This is the nurturing mother energy that holds her creations tight and allows them space to grow and develop and expand. So the being energy is extraordinarily nurturing. And so what is it that you're nurturing, right? This is being energy, not doing energy so much, but nurturing your own self and your beingness. This is highly creative energy. And yet there can be some feelings in here of not unity. This is a tricky one because sometimes this nurturing energy can bring up insecurities like, oh my gosh, if I let go, that, remember in Cancer, we have the smothering energy instead of mothering. Mothering turns into smothering. We have that same possibility here that I have to take care of mine. I have to take care of me and mine. And it closes you off to taking care of all, right? Or seeing that we are all interdependent on one another. So we'll also want to watch that over these next 13 days, because again, this is an energy that is the umbrella for the next 13 days, where we need to see the world as our family and not just our intermediate or family people here, your kids, your spouse, your whoever lives in your world. So we can't take actions only on nurturing those people closest to us. We also have to be open, heart open to doing what we can to nurture the interdependence of the world. And that insecurity that you feel needs to be sort of challenged, right? Challenged, because in this moment, all is well. Remember, staying in the present moment where anything and everything is possible, and not closing yourself off to others. This is about community orientation, perhaps, or seeing the wider world. It is an earth energy, right? Seeing the wider world. Responding to life and to people with love and with openness and with compassion, with that heart-centered energy. So such great possibility and potential sitting here in this day as we look forward to moving down into the next 13 days. All righty. Make sure I've gotten through everything this morning that I wanted to get through. I'm going to head over here now to YouTube, see how everybody's doing here. You're welcome, Augustina, from my heart. Thank you. You're most welcome. I really do kind of love doing charts and doing, kind of enlightening everybody to charts. I think what I'm going to do before I go here is I'm going to see if I have the chart of the moment. I do. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen again and share. All right, so you guys should be seeing the chart of the moment. This was the chart that I pulled up at what was 6:47 my time, because this is still set for Debbie Tibbetts 2 meal time in Florida. I need to go back into my program and change that because otherwise it's not my time. But it doesn't really matter. So it gives us Central Time. That's a Central Time zone. What this looked like at that moment. And here's where you really graphically see how the planets are all up there. There is literally nothing down here. So the world may feel a little unbalanced and overemphasized in one area or another, or, this is the upper part of the wheel, which is a very social aspect. So when we're down here below the horizon, so from the ascendant to the descendant coming down through the IC, this is the more personal growth and personal emphasis, and it's more self-centered energy. When we get above the horizon, these become the more social aspects, the more of us out in the world. And I can see now why people are straining against the stay home orders, and why there is a lot of challenges to that going on throughout the countries. And I know it's happening here in the US. I'm sure it's happening around the world as well, as people are really feeling the need to get back out to their lives, to be more social, to be more engaged in life itself in the outer realm. That doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it wrong, but now I can see why exactly that is happening. Now, if we were to look at this chart, and this was somebody's chart, right? And we looked at Jupiter in retrograde, what we would see is that this one is focused on the 7th house, and the 7th house being a relationship chart or a relationship placement. And so what we would see here is someone whose focus would be on growing themselves, growing their relationship with themselves, and then being able to see that reflected in their personal relationships or in their close relationships. We talked about the 8th house. If it's in somebody's 9th house, if it were in this house, which is a house of expansion and growth, naturally ruled by Jupiter, then we would see a lot of inner growth taking place, likely a bumping up of places where you are holding maybe fundamental truth that you've held as self-evident, and they are burning up, right? They're burning down. They are, being crushed around you, and you're coming into some sort of dynamic where your growth depends upon you letting go of some of the old and opening up to some of the new. So it could be a very powerful growth experience, but it can also be a little bit of a sadness if you're holding out old beliefs and watching them fall one after another. On the other hand, it could be that you wholeheartedly embrace that kind of growth, and you let go immediately of all these old things that you've held, these truths that you held self-evident that were really not so true after all, and you release them and you let them go. 10th house we talked about, as in that would be a career or a professional sort of focus, maybe having to claim your authority in a new way. The 11th house about vision and dreams and goals and the people who you are holding space with. If this is occurring in your 12th house, I always think Jupiter in the 12th house is an interesting case. I think of it as the hidden master, where there's something hidden from sight that you don't see yourself clearly, the truth of who you really are, where the divine you is obscured or hidden. So Jupiter moving through the 12th house for some of you might be bringing you to that opportunity to go within, to really see the core you, and aligning that core with your heart and your soul and your mind in a new way. And that might mean releasing some of those beliefs that you've held about yourself, or the way that you've constricted yourself. Often in this 12th house, we find that we're the ones that had the key all along to letting ourselves out of our self-imposed prisons. So Jupiter may be helping you to release yourself from that prison. If you have Jupiter moving through your 1st house, then this might be all about you. Your personality might be changing, your way of dressing might be changing, your way of look. Maybe it's a new haircut, maybe it's a new something for you, some self-acceptance, some self-focus, some self-help work going on that is increasing your growth. The 2nd house might be increasing in money, or having to take a deeper look at what is it that has held you back from prosperity and abundance. Whereas there's something there that you might need to, change about your thoughts about prosperity. And like I said, next week we have the Earth at the gate 14 in our human design, which is going to be a gate of prosperity, working for prosperity in our lives. And what does that mean for us? So if you have Jupiter moving through the 2nd house next week, might really be crystallizing some of that need for you to look at how you deal with resources, how you attract resources, and what kind of work you do that it brings in resources. If you have a third house Jupiter, you are likely working on issues in the mind and how you communicate and what are you teaching and what are you learning. So there's a very mind focused Jupiter here. And this is the lower mind. So where the ninth house brings us up to the possibility of, moving to the higher mind and looking at things from a divine point of view. In the third house, we're looking at it from the more I-centered point of view, where what am I thinking and what am I focusing on and what am I learning and what would I like to teach, and so communication and how am I communicating, am I getting heard, am I using my voice incorrectly, those kinds of considerations. Fourth house is going to bring it to home and family and a stable foundation, and the possibility is of being able to strengthen those apparent weaknesses in home, or in your roots. Even doing some ancestral work here might be really powerful for you to go inward and look at your family lineage and what is it that you've brought with you in that lineage and what might you want to let go of. And the fifth house is about your children, about your creative endeavors, about love and romance. Where have you maybe you need some growth in that love department. And that's not just love. It is romantic love, definitely, but love in its bigger order. And how do you embrace that in your life? And how do you embrace creativity? How do you have fun and enter more playfulness into your life, more joy into your life? Jupiter may have you exploring that. And in the sixth house, we talked a little bit about that. It's the house of work, the environment that you're working in, the people that you're working with, but it is also the body. And what is it that we can do for the body to help strengthen it and maybe do some purification with that, or in some way, go through a process of rehabilitating the body or rehabilitating your health in general. So that gives you a quick down look at, the different houses and how Jupiter retrograde may be bringing you luck and opportunities to let go of some old stuff and make room for some new stuff. We'll see how successful you are at all of this in September when Jupiter turns back to forward motion again. And you've got to understand too, there are a lot of planets retrograde. And that means that this is really the time for us to do some really keen work within. And if we want to see good changes going on in the outer world, it all begins with our inner world. And what can you do there, right? That's where it all begins. Okay, let's take a last look out here at the comments. Bring in the new. Yes, I'm very happy to allow the let go. Indeed, indeed. There's just so much potential right now, right? It boggles my mind. I also know there's a lot of challenges that will come with this because all of our old ideas and ways of being are being challenged, right? That inward focused planet always brings us to that internal dialogue or to that internal process, what's going on within. And then when they turn back to the forward motion, we get the opportunity to demonstrate in the world the changes that have gone on within us. So we have some, the summer of retrogrades, I think is how we could pretty much put this. We have Pluto, we have Saturn, we have Venus retrograde, we have Jupiter retrograde. Tomorrow or Friday or Saturday, Pallas Athena will be retrograde, and on, right? Mercury will be retrograde. And then the inner planets will begin to change back to forward motion. Well, just as we think we're out of that, then Mars turns retrograde. So, bleh. Right? We have a lot of that inner work to go on. We might as well embrace it and go with it, or else we'll drive ourselves nuts over the next few months. So, all right, now, one thing, a word about tomorrow. I am going to get to have my grandson Wyatt tonight and into tomorrow. So I am not sure if I will be here in the morning or not. If not, I will either come on Saturday morning or I will do a write-up of the energies for the weekend. Luckily, this isn't a huge weekend. We're coming out of the most crazy days of the week or of the month of May. So I just wanted everybody to be aware. I will attempt to do that, but Wyatt is too. Right. You can imagine what a 2-year-old running around might do in a house made of grandparents and not. Uh, it's going to be fun and exciting, but I don't know that I'll be able to come on in the morning. We'll see. In the meantime, I wish all of you a pleasant day and do your work, do your inner work, and do it with joy and enthusiasm and optimism that this is the beginning of something new and exciting for you. All right, everybody, take care. Have a great day. I will see you hopefully tomorrow. If not, I will definitely make sure you know what's going on for the weekend.